Oh, I love strong glutes and I cannot lie. No, wait, that's not how it goes. Yes, today's muscle of the week is the glutes. I covered the lats in the episode last week and how basically engaging and using your lats more improves your ability to strengthen and develop almost every muscle and your entire upper body. And I asked you folks, what do you want down below in the comment section? And the biggest request I had by far was cover the glutes. And like the lats, part of the reason for this is because of the large number of origin insertion points on the pelvis. You've got the gluteal line here on the ilium, then it comes up a little bit onto the iliac crest, so it's influencing the top of your pelvis a bit, and it even attaches a little bit lower down towards the sacrum and even towards the coccyx. And then all of those muscle fibers collectively feed in a diagonal pennation into the iliotibial tract right on your femur. So what all this construction of the muscle means is that it does a lot for the entire function of your hip, namely, of course, hip extension, a little bit of abduction or external rotation, which if we're looking at what we do with our legs, from walking, running, jumping, squatting, lunging, hell, even just standing still, the glutes should theoretically play a big role in everything we do with our lower body. The unfortunate thing, like the lats, is because they are a posterior muscle, we're looking at a very low habitual activation pattern. Even guys like me, cyclists, where we're doing activities that should theoretically be using the glutes on a regular basis, or as my chiropractor addressed in Vermont, gluteal amnesia, which is basically the fancy way of saying I've forgotten how to use my own ass. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we can effectively engage the muscle so we can take all of that stress that typically plagues our lower back and other areas of the body and get it right back into our hips where it's much more safely and effectively addressed. Now, if you look up online like effective glute exercises, you're undoubtedly going to come across a lot of like hip extension kind of movements, kettlebell swings, deadlifts, and these certainly can be very effective. But always remember, you can only work a muscle to the degree you can engage it. So this is an area where there's a lot of compensation, where if you have trouble engaging these muscles, people will use their lower back, they'll rely too much on the quads, coming up on the toes, and even though they're doing the, quote, right exercise, it's still not going to be very effective. So remember, my approach to adequately strengthening a muscle isn't just to use it in a perfect exercise once in a while for a few sets, but to engage it more so you're using the muscle more effectively all the time, and that especially goes for the glutes. Here's a couple of exercises I recommend to wake up those sleepy glutes. The first one, to get things moving, is to use a sturdy wall, and you're going to have a very straight, locked approach to using your legs. You don't want to have things bent or your hips flexed and stuff. Kind of lock out your legs a little bit, and you're just going to put your heel against the wall and drive that heel into the wall as hard as you can, keeping in mind that you're going to still use the hip flexors of the standing leg. You go back and forth. What you're looking for from this is to use the glutes and the hamstrings as well while you do this, and not your lower back. You shouldn't feel this at all in your lower back. Maybe helps to keep the shoulders down and packed a little bit. You're going to push for about 3 or 4 seconds, back and forth, just enough to wake things up. And I recommend doing this on a daily basis, especially in the morning, just to make sure your glutes are kind of online. And from there, once you've gotten comfortable with engaging the glutes on the wall, do it on the floor, because ideally we're using our glutes all day long anytime we have our feet underneath us. But unfortunately, that may not be the case, and we get it all in our lower back and so on. So then we apply the exact same thing to the floor, where we're trying to pull the floor apart with the glutes and the hamstrings. So I'm effectively trying to drive my foot backwards. And this helps you learn how to use your glutes more effectively anytime you're standing, you're walking, running. Anytime you're running, the glutes play a very key role in shock absorption for the knees. A lot of times people are like, running's bad for your knees. Yeah, if your glutes are barely engaged, yes. But if your glutes are very active and healthy, then they should be kind of a shock absorber for all of the joints in the lower body. So with that greater glute activation, everything you do with your lower body, particularly lunges, squats, and so on, will become much more powerful at building and strengthening your glutes, and things like the kettlebell swings, the hip thrusts and stuff will become more of a supplemental exercise, which is great in and of itself, but you want to feel like the big compound movements that you use with your legs are the real meat and potatoes that are effectively working your glutes. And I'll address this now because I know I'm going to get questions on it, like what about standing desks? And yes, I even have a standing desk, although technically it's not a desk. This is a high-top table I got at a restaurant supply store. But the thing is, this isn't going to save you either, because if you don't have that activation and you're just kind of working at your desk and you're not really using the best posture and stuff, it's still as detrimental as sitting. So when we're using a standing desk, you still want to be mindful of kind of sitting into your glutes and making sure every once in a while they're still on in order to support you while you're working at a standing desk. So what muscle would you like me to cover next in this video series? Let me know down below in the comments, and if you have any further questions down there, like, share, and of course subscribe, because I got a lot more of these coming out, looking at the neuromuscular anatomy of the human body, a bit more in depth so you can get more out of your workouts. Thank you very much for watching. Be fit and live free.